Even if you don't consider yourself a great baker, it's really nice to have a couple of really simple recipes in your repertoire. And this lemon cake we're going to make today should definitely be a contender. Now when you're baking, you're going to notice that the recipe instructions pretty much say preheat the oven to 350. And you'll turn around and look at your oven and it might say convection, convection bake, regular bake, and you might not be quite certain which mode to choose. So I'm going to bake two cakes today, one in convection and one in regular bake, to illustrate the difference in the results. Typically, when we bake in convection, the recommendation is to reduce recipe temperatures by 25 degrees. Convection heat circulates around the oven and cooks food from the edge to the center. Too high a temperature results in over-browned edges and sometimes the center not being set. When we cook in regular bake, most ovens are using a bottom and a top heating element. The bottom heating element will come on with greater intensity and the top heating element will cycle on and off from time to time for gentle browning. And it's a nice drying heat, and that's going to be the difference. When we bake in convection or cook in convection, foods will have more moisture retention. When we bake in regular bake, foods tend to dry out a little bit more. So the choice that you'll make will be based on the results you want. How do you get to making that decision? Well, you have to bake a few cakes and decide which one you like best. So let's get them in the oven. Now remember, when it comes to timing, every oven is a little bit different. In my experience, smaller ovens and gas ovens have a tendency to cook faster than the large electric wall and range ovens. So if you notice your oven cooks a little faster, set the timer a few minutes in advance of the stated recipe time. Always allow your cake to cool before you cut into it. And this cake is really delicious with some whipped cream and some fresh berries. It's absolute springtime perfection. Now this is interesting. Here we have exactly the same recipe, but cooked in two different modes and two different pans. So this one was cooked in regular bake, and the pan is a fairly light aluminum pan. Aluminum is a great conductor of heat, maybe a little bit too great in this case. In fact, when I saw this cake was browning so much, I dropped the recipe temperature from 350 to 320 because I just have never seen it brown this fast. I normally cook it in this pan, but I didn't have another pan just like this. But the tester came out clean, and I'm sure it's going to be delicious. Now this cake here, this is how it normally looks, a very pale golden color, and you can see it was beginning to get a little bit of browning. What did this tell me? The recipe time was too long for the convection oven that I baked this in. Again, the pan was a little bit different. It's probably also aluminum, but it's a heavier pan and it doesn't have that bright, shiny exterior. So when you are baking, it's never usually the oven's fault. There are many things to consider. The type of pan, the mode that you chose to bake in, and the recipe time you baked in. Look, things aren't always perfect. I know they'll taste really good. So just be prepared to experiment, pay attention, and troubleshoot a little bit so that you can fine-tune your baking to get the results that you really want.